My new MBA boss canceled my Pentagon trip. No more luxury vacations on the company dime. I calmly closed my binder and replied, okay, but the DoD doesn't give second chances. When the $150,000 daily penalties hit his desk, the panic emails started. Sup Reddit. The new boss called me a dinosaur in front of the whole company and said my job was basically a paid vacation. So I let him run things his way and watched him dig his own grave. Name's Gary, 49 male. Grab some popcorn. This is going to be intense. My alarm went off at 4 a.m. and I was already awake. Too much riding on contract renewal season to actually sleep. Checked on Adam first. Kids ate and sleeps like a rock. Backpack was by the door. Colleen handles mornings, but I make sure the important stuff's handled. I'm a senior field operations director for Ridgeline Power Systems. We're a blue-collar outfit that keeps military installations running. Generators, transfer switches, load testing, emergency callouts. 2 months ago, we had a generator array fail at Whiteman during a severe thunderstorm. Lightning strike cascaded through the backup grid. My crew had 53 minutes to restore emergency power to a facility I can't name. That's the job. You either know your business, or people start asking uncomfortable questions. I've been doing this for 26 years. Started as a wrench turner right out of the Army, crawling through mechanical rooms, learning how diesel generators breathe. Worked my way up to crew lead, then supervisor, then operations manager. Now I'm the guy who keeps us legal across 14 military installations in 4 states. The kitchen light was already on when I came downstairs. Colleen was at the table with her reading glasses on, surrounded by paperwork. I recognized the blue folder immediately. Guardianship documents. Our court review was 5 weeks out. Attorney's office called, she said without looking up. Needs updated employment verification and insurance confirmation by the 18th. Also wants bank statements showing household stability. I'll get Rhonda in HR to send the employment letter tomorrow. Insurance cards are in the filing cabinet. And the home evaluation visit is scheduled for the week after. Social worker wants to walk through the house, see Adam's room, talk to both of us separately. I poured coffee into my thermos and sat down across from her. We'd been raising Adam for 3.5 years now, ever since my son Noah's life fell apart. Started with painkillers after a warehouse accident, escalated when the prescriptions dried up, lost his apartment, lost his job, lost custody of Adam after his second arrest, when the cops found him passed out in a parking lot with the kid sitting in the back seat for 6 hours. The state gave us emergency custody first, then temporary guardianship when Noah skipped his treatment program. Then we filed for permanent guardianship when it became obvious he wasn't getting better. He was getting worse. We'll handle it, I said. My phone buzzed on the counter. Text from Noah. First contact in 2 months. Need to talk about my son. Serious. Call me back. His son. Like he was claiming ownership of a car he'd left to rust in someone else's driveway. Nothing good ever came from Noah's 4 a.m. messages. Usually meant he was still up from the night before, scheming. Whatever angle he was working could wait until I wasn't walking into the most critical meeting of the fiscal year. Slid the phone into my pocket without responding. Got to the office by 6 a.m. Set up in the main conference room with my binders. Color-coded tabs. Red for urgent deadlines. Some people think physical documentation is prehistoric. Those people have never watched a contract worth 8 figures hang in the balance while someone frantically searches a digital filing system that 17 different employees have organized over the years. Vince showed up around 6:30. Senior field tech. Been with Ridgeline almost as long as I have. Built like a refrigerator with a beard. Vince could tell you the exact torque settings for every transfer switch we'd serviced in the last 15 years. More importantly, he had the same paranoia I did about documentation. We'd both learned the hard way that paperwork was the difference between survival and unemployment. Heard the new efficiency genius is presenting today, Vince said, dropping into the chair next to me. Word around the shop is he's got slides. Slides are never good. Slides with clip art. Sandra in purchasing saw them yesterday. Little cartoon scissors cutting dollar signs. That's really never good. The DC trip was the annual base access credential renewal. It's in person. Originals on the table. No exceptions. No renewal means no base access, and we can't legally work on 14 installations. It's been that way since before I started, and every year some genius asked if we could modernize the process. Answer was always the same. People filtered in around 8 o'clock. Department heads, supervisors, crew chiefs. Then Trenton Marlowe walked in. Trenton doesn't walk. He glides. Got that business school energy you see in guys who've studied organizational psychology, but never actually fixed anything with their hands. He's 34. wears slim-fit suits, carries a presentation clicker like it's a magic wand. New Director of Operational Excellence, hired 12 weeks ago to optimize our cost structure. The first thing Trenton did when he arrived was redesign the break room coffee station to be more ergonomically efficient. Second thing was commissioning a study on our paperclip usage. The man had priorities. I'd prepared a presentation for this meeting, charts showing the renewal timeline, cost breakdown for the DC trip, risk matrix explaining exactly what happens if we miss the deadline. 26 years of institutional knowledge distilled into 45 minutes. Never got to open my binder. Trenton clicked his little wand, and the projector hummed to life. Big letters splashed across the screen. Strategic cost optimization. Clip art scissors. Dollar signs getting trimmed. Under that, in aggressive red font, legacy travel and hospitality programs. I've been conducting a comprehensive analysis of our expenditure patterns, Trenton announced, strutting around the front of the room. The findings are frankly concerning. We have senior personnel treating compliance functions as personal travel opportunities. Multi-day excursions to Washington that cost more than the median monthly salary at this company. We're hemorrhaging resources on what amounts to government-subsidized tourism. Room went dead quiet. That heavy silence when everyone knows somebody's about to get publicly gutted. Vince shifted in his seat next to me. I could feel 15 sets of eyes carefully avoiding my direction. Gary, Trenton's voice shifted. The annual DC renewal trip. It's being discontinued. We're consolidating to remote processes. If the DoD wants our business, they can adapt to modern verification methods. I set my coffee down. Felt that familiar pressure behind my eyes that meant a migraine was coming. Kept my voice completely level. Trenton, base access renewals aren't video calls. DoD requires physical verification, in-person audit of maintenance documentation, face-to-face credential certification. It's regulatory. No trip means no verification. No verification means no base access. No base access means 14 installations we can't legally service. He smiled. The kind of smile that says I've already decided, and this is just a performance. That's exactly the legacy thinking I'm here to modernize. I had Shayla research the requirements extensively. It's fundamentally paperwork. Complete the forms, submit electronically, receive confirmation. We don't need to hemorrhage $12,000 so you can spend a week playing bureaucrat in DC. Shayla. Trenton's hire. 23 years old. Hospitality management degree. Joined 6 weeks ago as compliance coordinator, despite zero compliance experience. Last Tuesday, she asked Hector what UPS stood for and seemed genuinely surprised it wasn't about package delivery. I looked at Trenton and understood exactly what was happening. He didn't care about regulations. Didn't care about risk assessment. Didn't care about the 400 people whose jobs depended on those base access credentials staying active. He wanted a win, a bullet point for his quarterly review. Something that said, saved company $12,000 through process optimization. I was the target he'd picked to build his reputation on. Okay, I said quietly. I'm sorry? I said okay, closed my binder. If that's your decision, Trenton, I'll comply. Vince looked at me without saying anything. Smart man. Walking back to my desk felt like a walk of shame. Could feel everyone watching. Whispers started before I'd made it past the dispatch board. Kept my head up. 26 years in this business and a few in the Army taught me how to take a hit without showing it. Got to my desk, pulled up the travel system. Cancel trip. Washington, D.C., June 12th to 18th. Reason. Administrative directive. System flagged the non-refundable deposit. $740. Gone. Phone buzzed. Noah again. Don't ignore me, Dad. I know my rights. My lawyer says I have standing to petition for custody review. Call me. His lawyer. He didn't have a lawyer. Noah had whatever free legal advice he could squeeze out of public defenders and internet forums. What Noah had was an angle. The man could find leverage in an empty room. Typed back, Adam has school. Weekend works better. Let me know a specific time. Then I put the phone face down on my desk. Needed to focus. I sent Shayla a complete handover email and CC'd Trenton. Every packet, every contact, every requirement, with the deadline in bold, June 17th, 5 p.m. Eastern. No extensions. Then I forwarded it to my personal email. If they wanted to play games, I wanted receipts. Vince appeared at my desk 20 minutes later. Looked around to make sure nobody was listening. You're really just going to let this happen? Not my call anymore, Vince. Trenton wants to modernize. Who am I to stand in the way of progress? Progress. He almost spit the word. That kid couldn't modernize a toaster. You know what happens if we lose base access? I know exactly what happens. Then why aren't you fighting this? I turned to face him directly, lowered my voice. Because fighting means I'm the problem. Fighting gives Trenton exactly what he needs to push me out entirely and blame me when everything collapses. This way, he owns it. Every decision, every consequence, every dollar we lose when his digital-first compliance model runs headfirst into DoD regulations that haven't changed since Reagan. Vince stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. You're documenting everything. Yes. What can I do? Keep your eyes open. Let me know what you see in the field. And Vince? Make sure your own paperwork is spotless. When this goes sideways, they're going to look for people to blame. He walked away without another word. I opened a new spreadsheet and started building my insurance file. Trenton appeared at my desk that afternoon, still riding high from his conference room victory. Sandra from IT was trailing behind him, tablet in hand, looking uncomfortable. Gary, glad I caught you. We're implementing some security updates to our system architecture. Sandra's going to need to adjust your portal access credentials. Sandra wouldn't meet my eyes. It's, a standard optimization, consolidating legacy user permissions. Translation: Trenton was locking me out of the DoD compliance systems. Couldn't have the dinosaur checking up on Shayla's work or, God forbid, trying to help. Whatever you need, I said. Just let me know when it's done. Trenton smiled. Excellent attitude, Gary. Really shows adaptability. By the way, I've got a new project for you. We need a comprehensive audit of our parts inventory. Physical count, reconciliation against purchase orders, efficiency analysis. I want you leading it personally. 26 years of institutional knowledge. Now counting boxes in a warehouse. Happy to contribute wherever I'm needed. That's the spirit. Sandra, make sure his system transition is completed by end of business today. They walked away. Sandra glanced back at me once, apologetic. She knew what was happening. Everyone knew. Nobody was going to say anything. I pulled out my personal phone and texted Vince. They're cutting my portal access today. Going to need your help documenting things from the field side. Response came 30 seconds later. Already on it. Got screenshots of the system status from this morning. Something weird is happening with Shayla's submissions. I smiled for the first time all day. Wasn't alone in this. The next 3 weeks felt like watching a house fire from across the street, while the people in charge argued about where to park the trucks. Trenton reassigned me to the warehouse for a full inventory audit. Barcode scans, purchase orders, counting parts like that was the best use of 26 years of DoD compliance experience. Shayla ran meetings about streamlined compliance pathways off bullet points she didn't understand, and nobody stopped her because Trenton was mistaking confidence for competence. Sent daily reports to Trenton's inbox. Never got a response. But while I was playing inventory manager, I was building something else entirely. Vince kept me updated from the field. Screenshots, timestamps, documentation of every red flag he could capture. 2 weeks before the deadline, he forwarded me something that made my stomach drop. Internal message from Shayla to the DoD verification portal. I don't understand what a base access credential verification matrix is. Can we substitute our standard company employee ID system? Using standard employee credentials for DoD base access verification would flag the entire submission as non-compliant. Automatic rejection. Investigation trigger. Basically like showing up to a security checkpoint with a library card and expecting them to let you into the Pentagon. Every instinct screamed at me to intervene. Fix it. Walk Shayla through the process step by step like I'd done for dozens of employees over the years. Then I remembered Trenton's smug face in that conference room. The way everyone had looked away while I got publicly gutted. Let it burn. My phone rang that evening. Unknown number. I answered. Gary. Noah's voice. Using someone else's phone again. You're dodging me. I'm at work, Noah. It's not a good time. It's never a good time with you. That's the problem. You think you can just take my son and pretend I don't exist. I didn't take anyone. The state placed Adam with us because you couldn't show up to your own custody hearings. Because you failed 4 consecutive drug tests. Because you left an 8-year-old sitting in a parking lot for 6 hours while you were passed out in the front seat. That was one time. I'm clean now. Been clean for 3 months. 3 months doesn't erase 3 years, Noah. You don't get to decide that. Courts decide that. And my lawyer says, you don't have a lawyer. Adam is happy. He's safe. He's doing well in school. If you want to be part of his life, show up. Consistently. Pass your tests. Get stable. Until then, we're done talking about this. This isn't over, Gary. When you're unemployed and I'm the one with stability, we'll see what the court thinks about who should have custody. The line went dead. I sat there in the warehouse surrounded by boxes of parts, phone still pressed to my ear, When you're unemployed. How did Noah know things were shaky at work? Who had he been talking to? Didn't matter. Had bigger fires to deal with. Back at my desk the next morning, Sandra Chen caught me in the hallway. Looked around nervously before speaking. Gary, I shouldn't be telling you this, but I still have admin access to the compliance portal logs. Shayla's been submitting incomplete forms for 2 weeks. The system keeps rejecting them. She doesn't seem to understand why. She's probably filing them in her figure out later folder. Actually, yes. How did you know? 26 years, Sandra. You learn to see certain patterns coming. The deadline is in 4 days. Nothing's been properly submitted. The DoD warning system has sent 3 automated alerts. Shayla opened them all. And? She forwarded them to Trenton with a note that said, FYI, routine system notifications, no action needed. I closed my eyes. Let that sink in. Routine system notifications. Basically like the fire alarm going off and someone calling it a routine audio test. Sandra, I need you to do something for me. Screenshot everything. Store it somewhere Trenton can't access. I could lose my job. You might lose your job anyway when this company goes under. At least this way you'll have documentation proving you tried to help. She hesitated, then nodded. I'll have everything to you by end of day. June 17th arrived like watching a car wreck in slow motion. Got to the warehouse by 6:30 a.m. Made my coffee and watched the clock. At 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, the deadline passed. Our base access credentials expired across 14 military installations. Every technician badge tied to Ridgeline Power Systems was now invalid. Every generator we maintained on federal property was now serviced by an unauthorized contractor. Every active dispatch ticket was frozen pending credential restoration. No alarms, no flashing lights. Bureaucracy doesn't blow up dramatically. It's quiet. You don't realize you're dying until you can't stand up anymore. But the penalties started adding up the moment that clock hit 0. Wednesday passed quiet. Thursday too. Trenton was planning some kind of team wellness initiative, talking about mindfulness workshops and gratitude journals. Posted a Slack message about celebrating our progress toward operational excellence. The man was rearranging deck chairs while the ship sank. Friday morning, things fell apart. Hector from dispatch called me around 9:15. Voice strained. Gary, something's wrong. I can't schedule the McConnell call-out. The system keeps rejecting the work order. Says our authorization credentials are invalid. Call IT. Did. They say it's not on their end. Something about external verification? I knew exactly what it was, but I wasn't going to be the one to explain it. Maybe bring it to Trenton. He's the efficiency expert. 45 minutes later, everything accelerated. Vince called from the field. We just got turned away at Whiteman. Security wouldn't let us pass the checkpoint. Said our contractor credentials are showing as expired in the federal system. We've got a critical generator that's overdue for maintenance by 3 days. What did you tell them? That there must be a mistake. They said take it up with our compliance department. We're sitting in the parking lot right now. 6 guys with nothing to do, while backup power equipment sits unserviced. By noon, 5 more installations had reported access denials. Fort Riley, Tinker, Mallory, Offutt. Our field crews were being turned away at security gates like uninvited guests. Equipment locked in maintenance bays we couldn't enter. A critical load bank test got scrubbed because our crew couldn't get through the gate. Liquidated damages started triggering. Our contracts had uptime guarantee clauses. Penalty schedules for missed maintenance windows. Every obligation we couldn't meet was another line item bleeding money. Trenton called an emergency meeting at 2 p.m. Stood in the conference room looking genuinely confused for the first time since he'd arrived. The smug confidence was starting to crack. We're experiencing some technical difficulties with our federal authorization systems, he announced. IT is working on it. Likely just a database synchronization issue. Hector raised his hand. Trenton, I've got 3 crews sitting idle because they can't access job sites. That's 18 technicians being paid to do nothing. How long until this gets fixed? We're escalating through appropriate channels. Should be sorted within 24 to 48 hours. It wasn't going to be sorted in 48 hours. It wasn't going to be sorted in 48 days without intervention from someone who actually understood the system. But I sat in the back of the room and said nothing. That evening, I got home late. Colleen was at the kitchen table with the household budget spreadsheet open on her laptop. Adam was in the living room doing homework. The HR department sent the employment verification letter, Colleen said. Dated today. But Gary, if something happens with the company, I know. The guardianship review is 4 weeks out. The court needs proof of stable employment, stable household income. If there's any disruption, she didn't finish. We both understood the math. Noah was circling, waiting for weakness. Any instability in our situation was ammunition he could use. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I could feel everything closing in. The company bleeding money. The guardianship review approaching. My son, who couldn't stay clean for 6 consecutive months, suddenly talking about lawyers and custody challenges. I sat down across from Colleen and took her hand. Whatever happens at work, we handle it. Adam stays with us. That's not negotiable. How are we going to handle it if the company goes under? The company's not going under. They're going to realize they made a massive mistake, and they're going to come begging for help. When they do, I'm going to make sure we're protected. All 3 of us. She nodded. Monday morning, Ridgeline Power Systems was in full-blown crisis. About a week of credential suspension, stop work orders on 11 installations, dispatch boards showing nothing but red. Our field crews had been sitting idle, collecting paychecks for work they couldn't perform. Hector told me 3 technicians had already started looking for other jobs. Liquidated damages were piling up. Every missed maintenance window triggered penalty clauses. Every unanswered emergency call-out meant contract violations. Every day of suspended access was another $150,000 in combined losses. Vince showed me the field reports. Generator at Mallory was running 6 days past its maintenance window. Battery bank at Whiteman hadn't been tested in 2 weeks. Transfer switch at Fort Riley was showing warning indicators that nobody could investigate because our crews couldn't get through the gate. We're one equipment failure away from a real disaster, Vince said. If something critical goes down on a base we can't access, people could get hurt. Conference room was standing room only when I got summoned. Harrison Caldwell, CEO, built this company from nothing over 40 years. Looked like he'd aged a decade in the past week. Monica, company attorney, legal pad covered in notes. Dennis, CFO, running calculations that clearly weren't giving him good news. And Trenton, looking like a man who'd finally realized he was drowning. Sit down, Gary, Caldwell said, voice rough. I sat, folded my hands on the table. We have a situation, Caldwell began. Our base access credentials expired 8 days ago. DoD has flagged our entire operation as non-compliant. We've received stop work orders from 11 installations. We're facing approximately $150,000 per day in combined penalties, lost revenue, and contract damages. He let that number sink in. 150,000. Daily. The kind of bleeding that could kill a company our size in a matter of weeks. Trenton has provided his assessment of what went wrong. Caldwell's tone was carefully neutral. He indicates there were failures in the handover process. Claims documentation wasn't properly transferred. Says there were gaps in the information provided. My eyes moved to Trenton. He was staring at the conference table like it owed him money. Jaw clenched. Wouldn't look at me. Says you were resistant to the transition, Monica added. Uncooperative with new processes, potentially sabotage the compliance effort to prove a point about traditional methods. I didn't respond immediately, reached into my bag, pulled out a plain manila folder, set it in the center of the conference table. Mr. Caldwell, I've worked here 26 years, never missed a deadline, never failed an audit, built relationships with DoD personnel that took 2 decades to establish. That's in the past, Trenton cut in, finding his voice. We're talking about what happened now. You deliberately set Shayla up to fail because you couldn't accept that your methods were being replaced. I knew she would fail, I said, voice flat. That's why I sent her this. Opened the folder, pulled out the first document. Email from me to Shayla Vance, CC'd to Trenton Marlowe. May 21st, complete handover package, deadline explicitly stated. June 17th, DoD does not grant extensions. Trenton shifted in his chair. Sending an email doesn't prove you actually helped when she needed it. Document 2. I laid the Slack conversation printout on the table. Shayla, having trouble with the base access renewal forms. Deadline coming up. Can I schedule time with Gary to go over the procedures? Trenton, don't distract Gary with old processes. We're handling this with fresh methodology. Gary, happy to walk through the procedures if it helps. Trenton, Gary, your assignment is inventory analysis. Leave compliance strategy to the optimization team. The room got real quiet. You blocked her from talking to the one person who could help her, I said. When she tried to reach out, you shut it down. Told her fresh methodology would fix problems that have existed since before either of you were born. Caldwell leaned forward. You prevented our compliance coordinator from consulting our compliance director? I was trying to prevent micromanagement, Trenton said, voice cracking. Build independent problem-solving skills. Document 3. I produced the IT service ticket. Remove Gary Holt from DoD Credential Management Systems. Requested by Trenton Marlowe. Priority, urgent. Reason, security optimization, legacy user consolidation. You locked me out of the verification portal on May 24th, 4 weeks before the deadline. Even if I'd wanted to check on Shayla's progress, even if I'd wanted to fix her mistakes when I found them, the system would have rejected my login. I was physically blocked from doing anything. Monica was reading the documents. And finally, documents 4 through 6. 3 DoD automated warning notices. Time-stamped. Server logs showing they'd been opened by Shayla's account, followed by her forwarding email to Trenton. FYI. Routine system notifications, no action needed. 3 federal warnings. Deadline approaching. Action required. All opened by Shayla. All dismissed as routine. The system tried to warn you. Multiple times. Nobody paid attention. I closed the folder. I didn't sabotage anything, Mr. Caldwell. I followed orders. Trenton told me my methods were expensive and outdated, told me to step aside and let fresh thinking handle it. So I stepped aside. Exactly like he asked. I paused. Let the silence hang there. The problem isn't that I didn't do my job. The problem is Trenton thought my job was easy. Nobody said a word for what felt like a full minute. Caldwell stared at the documentation spread across the table, then at Trenton. His expression had gone past angry into something colder. The look of a man realizing he'd handed a loaded gun to someone who shot him in the foot with it. Trenton. Caldwell's voice was barely a whisper. Explain to me why we're losing $150,000 a day, because you wanted to save $12,000 on travel expenses. Trenton's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I can fix this, he finally managed. Hire specialized consultants. There are firms that handle government compliance stuff. We can bring in experts. You can't fix it, I interrupted, because you don't understand what you broke. Everyone looked at me. DoD Emergency Credential Restoration requires a master authorization sequence specific to our company, issued during an in-person audit at the Pentagon 8 years ago. Physical documentation, verification codes, contact protocols for specific officials who can expedite the restoration process. Information that's too sensitive to store on company servers because, as we're currently seeing, company servers can be accessed by people who don't know what they're looking at. Where is it? Caldwell asked. Some of it's memorized. Some of it's in a secure location in Arlington that requires my fingerprint to access. I created backup systems for exactly this kind of emergency. Trenton slumped in his chair like someone had pulled the plug on him. It finally clicked. He hadn't just missed a deadline. He'd locked out the only person who could fix the problem, then watched everything burn while he planned mindfulness workshops. You removed our senior operations director from the compliance system, Caldwell said, voice dangerous. Canceled the trip that would have prevented this, then told me everything was under control. I didn't know about the Arlington stuff, Trenton said weakly. It was documented in the Emergency Procedures Manual, the red binder. You had Shayla scan and shred it 6 weeks ago because, how did you put it? Physical documentation is dead weight in a digital-first environment. Caldwell closed his eyes. Took a deep breath. Get out. Security will walk you to your desk to collect your things. You're terminated immediately. Legal will be in touch about potential liability. Trenton stood up, knocked his chair backward, left without another word. Through the glass walls, I watched 2 security officers intercept him before he reached his office. Watched them hand him a cardboard box. Watched him load his minimalist desk stuff while everyone in the building pretended not to stare. 12 weeks of strategic optimization. Gone in 12 minutes. Caldwell turned to me. Complete change. Gary, I apologize. Sincerely. We made a terrible mistake. I made a terrible mistake. I need you on a flight to Washington tonight. Whatever it takes. Business class. 50% salary increase effective immediately. Bonus structure, car allowance, additional PTO. Name your terms. 6 months ago, this would have been everything. Everything I'd wanted. But 6 months ago, I hadn't spent weeks counting inventory while my professional reputation got torn apart. Hadn't been called a scammer in front of colleagues I'd worked with for decades. Hadn't watched everyone in that conference room stare at their phones while I got publicly destroyed. And there was Adam, the guardianship review. Noah circling like a vulture, waiting for any sign of weakness. 4 weeks until the court evaluation, and my son was already making noise about lawyers and custody challenges. I reached into my bag, pulled out a sealed envelope. Had it ready for 2 weeks, waiting for exactly this moment. Slid it across the table. What is this? Caldwell asked. My resignation. Effective immediately. Gary, no, we can't lose you. Not now. Should have thought about that before you let a guy with a business degree and a clip art presentation convince you I was the problem. Think about your coworkers, Monica said. 400 people depend on this company staying afloat. Then maybe Shayla can YouTube tutorials on federal contractor credential restoration. Heard she's great at digital solutions. I stood up, straightened my jacket. My price was respect, Mr. Caldwell. That's not something you can buy back once you've thrown it away. Walked out without looking back. Caldwell followed me to my desk. Kept talking the entire way. Doubled the salary offer. Tripled it. Company vehicle. Corner office. Equity stake. Seat on the advisory board. I packed my stuff while he negotiated with himself. Gary, please. The penalties alone could force us into bankruptcy. 40 years of my family's work. Think about what you're walking away from. I zipped my bag. I've been thinking about it for 3 weeks, Mr. Caldwell. Every day in that warehouse counting electrical parts. Every mandatory workshop about embracing change. Every time Trenton walked past my desk without even looking at me, because acknowledging me meant facing what he'd done. I've had plenty of time to think. Name your price. Anything. Write your own deal. I looked at him. Really looked. Saw a man who'd built something real over 4 decades and handed pieces of it to someone who didn't understand what he was holding. Same mistake a lot of people make. They see youth and energy and confidence and assume that means the same thing as competence. My terms are that I don't work for organizations that don't respect what I do. 26 years, Mr. Caldwell. 26 years of early mornings and missed dinners. Canceled vacations and emergency callouts. Keeping this company legal while everyone else assumed compliance just happened automatically. And it took Trenton 10 weeks to convince you I was dead weight. I picked up my bag. That's not a company I'm interested in saving. Walked through the main floor. Vince caught my eye from across the room. Nodded once. He understood. Hector started to say something. Stopped himself. Wendy just shook her head slowly. Parking lot was bright with afternoon sunlight. My phone buzzed as I reached my truck. Noah. Different number again. Heard things aren't going great at your job. Interesting timing with the custody stuff. Maybe we should have a serious talk about where Adam ends up. Same old Noah. Always assuming everyone else was as scheming as him. Typed back, my employment status isn't your business. Adam stays where he is. You want to make this about court, remember? I've got documentation of 4 failed drug tests and 2 abandoned visitations. Don't contact me again until you're ready to be a father instead of a negotiator. Blocked the number. Drove to the airport. Called Colleen from the terminal. Harrison Caldwell has been calling the house nonstop, begging me to talk you into coming back. What happened? I resigned. Long pause. Gary? I know. The guardianship. The insurance. The home evaluation. I know what's on the line. What are we going to do? I'm flying to Washington. I'm not fixing anything tonight. I'm setting terms, and I'm taking a few days for myself before I touch their mess. And if they say no to your terms, then they can explain to 14 military installations why their backup power systems are being maintained by contractors without valid credentials. Caldwell doesn't have options. I'm his only shot, and he knows it. She was quiet for a moment. Noah called here too, talking about custody lawyers again. He's always bluffing. He doesn't have money for lawyers. I'm not unemployed, Colleen. I'm self-employed, with one extremely motivated client who's about to pay whatever I ask. I love you, Gary. Love you too. Tell Adam Grandpa's on a business trip. I'll bring him something from the Air and Space Museum. Hung up, bought my ticket. One way to DC. The flight was everything the commercials promised, and the middle seats never delivered. Actual legroom, real food, window seat. My phone filled with messages from Caldwell, each one more desperate than the last. Gary, board is meeting tomorrow. Emergency session. Talking about selling the company at a huge discount. Gary, please, $1.5 million for 30 days of consulting. Just need the restoration protocols. Gary, I'm begging you. Name any number. Whatever it takes. I read them all. Let them sit. Ordered coffee from the flight attendant. Somewhere below, 14 military bases had backup systems overdue for maintenance, and nobody on our team was authorized to touch them. Somewhere, Trenton Marlowe was explaining to his wife why he got fired after 12 weeks. Somewhere, Shayla Vance was updating her resume, hoping this mess wouldn't follow her around. Somewhere, Harrison Caldwell was learning the most expensive lesson of his 40-year career, that institutional knowledge isn't dead weight, it's the foundation. I pulled out my phone one last time, typed a new message to Caldwell. Consultation rate, $2,000 per hour, 100-hour minimum, paid in full before any work begins. Travel and expenses billed separately at cost. Availability begins 1 week from today. These terms are non-negotiable. If that doesn't work for you, I'd suggest contacting other DoD compliance specialists. The 3 firms I know of that handle emergency credential restoration are booked through October. You don't have alternatives. Your call. Hit send. Turned off the phone. Leaned back in my seat. Thought about Adam at his baseball game last weekend. Kid hit a double. Ran the bases with pure joy on his face. Looked for me in the stands the second he touched second base. That moment was worth more than every hour I'd spent in Pentagon conference rooms. Noah wanted to use job instability as leverage. Circle back and claim a son he'd abandoned. But here's what Noah never got. You don't protect your family by being scared. You protect them by knowing what you're worth and refusing to let anyone make you forget it. I had skills the DoD needed. Documentation proving exactly who was responsible for this disaster. And I had a family that needed me to be strong enough to walk away from disrespect. Caldwell would accept my terms. He didn't have a choice. The penalties would destroy the company otherwise. I'd go back to Washington, fix what Trenton broke, and bill them enough to make the last month worth every minute of humiliation. But not today. Today, I was going to sleep in a nice hotel with room service and clean sheets. Tomorrow, I was going to visit the Smithsonian like I'd promised myself for 20 years. For the first time in 26 years, I was taking a real vacation, not a Pentagon trip disguised as one. The most expensive lesson a company ever learns is that experience isn't just a number on a resume. It's the contacts nobody else has. $2,000 an hour, 100-hour minimum, paid up front. That's the price of respect. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.